All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we do player comps on all of their new rookies, including some of the undrafted free agents. So we went through. The only one that we didn't do was Jarrett Kingston, just because I haven't seen enough of Kingston and I didn't see enough of him at the mini camp to give you a reliable comp. But everybody else, we're going to go through the league and we're going to give you players that we think the current 49er players best compared to, the best comparison player of what the rookies are. So we'll go through that. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle. Go get the brisket. Go get the brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. All right. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles in Monterey. Go check them out as well if you're along the Monterey Peninsula. Anthony Catania, give him a call down there at Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles in Pacific Grove, a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, let's talk a little bit about player comps. Now, some of these are going to make you upset because you're going to not like the players that I'm comparing the rookies to. Others you may say are unrealistic comparisons, that it's too lofty of a comparison. So leave your comments below and, of course, hit like and subscribe to the Krug Show. But let's run it down, and we'll start with why don't we start with Ricky Pearsall, the number one pick overall for the 49ers. Took him 31 overall, and Pearsall, I think, is a really good pick. You look at some of the measurables. He ran 4.4. He's got a 42-inch vertical. What he really is an elite short area quickness guy. He's a slot wide receiver. He might be able to play other spots, but I think he's best operating out of the slot, I should say. And he's got elite ball skills, great body control, real good idea of how to set up cornerbacks, very advanced in a lot of ways. And he gets separation. Now, he doesn't necessarily maintain separation, and that's kind of my concern going forward. But he gets open consistently, and he has great hands. So you say, well, who's a good comparison? And a lot of people want to say, every little white receiver there is, he's Julian Edelman. It's like he's Wes Welker. He's this guy. He's that guy. Julian Edelman was extraordinarily tough. Wes Welker was a really, really good NFL wide receiver. I've heard people say, well, he's Steve Largent. I'm old enough to remember Steve Largent. Steve Largent was very crafty route runner with incredible hands, very consistent. So if he was Steve Largent, heck, that's awesome. And then the Niner fans should be feeling thrilled. Let me give you, I think, a more realistic comparison to Ricky Pearsall. And maybe some people are going to be like, oh, my God, when I say this name. I see a lot of Danny Amendola. Now you say, well, Danny Amendola was an undrafted free agent in 2008. I get it. He was an undrafted free agent, and this guy's a first-round draft choice. So the comparison's not really good there. But before you say, man, Danny Amendola, he stinks. First of all, they're pretty much the exact same size, 5'11", 185 pounds. Amendola was, 5'10", 5'11", 185, 29-inch arms, 8.5-inch hands. He had a 1.63 10-yard split. He had 13 reps on the bench. Okay, but I mean, before you say, man, Amendola stinks, he did play, 14 years in the NFL. He played for 7 teams. He was a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He led the NFL in kickoff return yards in 2009, 617 career receptions, 24 career receiving touchdowns. I just see a lot of Amendola. Amendola had great body control. Amendola is not near the athlete of Ricky Pearsall. Amendola ran 4.7. Pearsall runs 4.4. Amendola had a 27.5-inch vertical. Pearsall's got a 42.5-inch vertical. So, I mean, Pearsall's a better athlete. But what I see on film is the same kind of player. Elite short area quickness, slot receivers with unbelievable footwork and the ability to just turn you into a pretzel trying to mirror them. Both of them had elite ball skills. Both can get separation but can't maintain separation because they don't have vertical speed. So they get separation with quickness and footwork, but then the corner closes down that separation after getting beat. Both get open consistently. Both had great hands. As I said, Pearsall 6'1", 190, 30 and 7/8. He had 6'1", 190, 30 and 7/8 arm length, 9 and an eighth inch hands. So he's a little bit bigger hands. And he had a 1.57 10-yard split. He had 17 reps of 225. So, 17 for Pearsall, 13 for Amendola, 163 10-yard split for Amendola, 157 10-yard split for Pearsall. So Pearsall's a little bit better athlete, but to me, this is the kind of player he is. He's a Danny Amendola. Is he ever going to be the number one receiver on your team? No, but he can be incredibly effective and a guy you win a lot of games with. I mean, I don't think it's accidental that the Patriots won a couple Super Bowl titles with Amendola on the team because he's a useful player and he's a good player. So I know people will say Largent and Wes Welker and Cooper Kupp and Julian Edelman. I think those guys all had traits that were a little different. Kupp was a little quicker. I think Amendola is a little tougher. Welker was a little bit better route runner, I think, overall, as far as advanced route running ability. He had a little bit more collegiate production. But Pearsall reminds me of Amendola. And to me, that doesn't make me mad because I liked Amendola. And I think Amendola was a solid player. Now, Amendola was never a star, but he was a very effective continuity piece for the Patriots for a few years there and was one of Tom Brady's favorite weapons for a while. So I see a kind of a souped up Danny Amendola with Ricky Pearsall. And that would be the comparison I would make. All right, let's get to round two, Renardo Green. Renardo Green is a 6 feet, 185-pound corner, 37.5-inch vert, 4.49 in the 40. He's a press man cornerback with elite body control. He's quick. He's confident. He's willing in run support. He plays with a burst, plays with some swagger. To me, he reminds me a lot of Darius Williams, who was on the Rams for a while. Who won a Super Bowl championship with the Rams. Renardo Green, I should say, is 6 feet, 186. Darius Williams was 5'9", 185. So he was definitely a couple inches shorter. But both of them, Darius Williams had 4.4 speed. Renardo Green's got 4.4 speed. Renardo Green had a 37.5-inch vertical. And I believe Darius Williams had a 39-inch vertical. So, I mean, very similar kind of body types and lower body explosiveness. Both played with burst. Both played with a swagger. Both kind of could be trusted as press man corners, but they're kind of undersized. Both are scheme versatile and can play multiple positions. You can play Darius Williams inside. You can play him outside. Heck, you could probably play him at safety if you wanted to. Both play with a lot of quickness. Both are incredibly confident. Both will come up and hit you in the run game. So I see a Darius Williams, a little bit bigger version of the former Ram corner. And I think that's a good thing. Darius Williams has been a very good corner in the NFL for a number of years. And if Renardo Green can be Darius Williams, I think that's pretty good. All right, let's get to Dominick Puni. Puni, the guard out of Kansas. 6'5", 313 pounds. He played left tackle, but he projects to guard. 33 and 3/8-inch arms, versatile, tough offensive lineman, plays with a lot of aggressiveness, super aggressive blocker, really good athlete, smart player. This is tough because offensive linemen are tough to evaluate in a short amount of time. You got to see them over the course of time. But he kind of reminds me a little bit of Zane Beadles. Beadles could play all the spots, but was best at guard. And Puni, I think, can play all the spots, but is best at guard. Beadles was a second-round pick in 2010. He did make one Pro Bowl in 2012. And he just, to me, it's, a lot of the same traits. I mean, kind of big, kind of nasty. I think Puni's a little bit better athlete than Beatles. I think Puni's a little bit faster than Beatles. But I think, if he makes a Pro Bowl, that would be a great thing. Beatles has made a Pro Bowl, but the versatility, the aggressiveness, and probably settling in at right guard makes me want to compare him to Zane Beatles. Solid NFL guard. Pro Bowler, no. Difference maker, not really. But solid, athletic, useful player who was good enough to make the Pro Bowl. And I think Puni reminds me a little bit of Beatles in that he's got versatility. Now, that might be one of the weaker comparisons that I'm making here just because I haven't studied Beatles that much. But I think I do remember him being a guy who could play all 5 spots. He did make a Pro Bowl. He was a 2nd-round pick. Puni's a 3rd-round pick. Similar athleticism, though I think Puni's a little bit better athlete. But yeah, I would see it maybe a Zane Beatles, a guy who's going to, play maybe right away, maybe make a couple Pro Bowls over the course of his career. Nothing spectacular, but definitely good. All right, so that's my comp for him. Now let's jump to day 3. And the Niners' first pick on day 3 was Malik Mustapha. And I love Malik Mustapha, so I wanted to give him a really good comparison. What he is a hard-hitting safety who is very smart, very heady, and because he's such a smart player, you can play him in a lot of different spots. You could play him at free safety, and he'd be fine. I think you could play him at strong safety. I think he'd be fine. You could play him at weak side linebacker. He'd hold his own. He's that kind of a hitter. He had 22 reps of 225 at 5'10", 209. And when you watch him in the football field, he really hits, and he looks like a truck. I'm going to give him a comparison to one of my old school favorites. He reminds me a little bit of Rodney Harrison. Now, Rodney Harrison was bigger, right? Rodney Harrison was taller, 6'1", about 220. This guy's 5'10", 209. But and Rodney Harrison was a great player. He won 2 Super Bowls. He was a 2-time All-Pro. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler. He probably should have been to more. He was a big-time hitter. What I see with Mustapha and Harrison is Harrison actually was the guy who could hit and could cover. He could run well enough to cover, and yet he was absolutely much more of a hitter than a cover guy. And that's what I think Mustapha is. I think he's much more of a hitter. I think he's an impact guy like Rodney Harrison. But I also think he's not quite the vicious hitter that Harrison is, but I think he's a little bit better coverage man than Harrison was. So that's the comp I would give him because I've got to think of a old school thumper who wants to play in the box and destroy backs and tight ends, but also has some ability to run and some ability to cover ground and to play, field safety in a cover 3 in a zone or play that free safety role in a number of different defensive coverages. I think he reminds me a little bit of Rodney Harrison. Now, Rodney Harrison played in an era where safeties were more like linebackers. Mustapha is playing in an era where he's going to have to play coverage. But he definitely, the smarts, the intimidation factor, the confidence, the swagger, the hitting, he reminds me a lot of Rodney Harrison. Rodney Harrison was a vicious hitter. This guy is just a damn good hitter. But this guy's a little bit better. Malik Mustapha is a little bit better coverage man than Harrison was. But Harrison had speed and could move. So that's the comp I would go. I'd go old school and go Rodney Harrison. All right, let's go Isaac Guerendo, the running back / what I think might be a fullback from Louisville. He started at Wisconsin. He's 6 feet, 220 with 4.33 speed and a 1.55 10-yard split. So already you're talking about a rare player. And it's hard to come up with a good comp when you've got such a rare athletic specimen, right? Because there are very few guys that are 220 pounds that run in the low 4.3s. The guy that comes to mind is Jonathan Taylor. They both played at Wisconsin. Jonathan Taylor didn't catch the ball as well as Guerendo, He didn't block as well as Guerendo, but Guerendo doesn't have the pick and slide that Jonathan Taylor had. But if you look at Jonathan Taylor, he was 5'10", 226 pounds. He ran 4.39 with a 1.46 10-yard split. Guerendo's 6 feet 220, so he's 2 inches taller, 6 pounds lighter, and he ran 4.33 with a 1.55 10-yard split. So not quite as fast in the first 10 yards, but faster over 40 yards. Taylor also had a 36-inch vertical, and Guerendo had a 42-inch vertical. So both have big-time lower body explosiveness. Both have a breakaway. The reason now they're different backs in that Taylor had more pick and slide. Taylor and they're totally different in that Taylor probably had high mileage coming out of Wisconsin, where Guerendo's got low mileage. Guerendo's only started one game. Jonathan Taylor had huge amounts of games played at Wisconsin. So that's how they're really different. But where they're really the same is there aren't that many running backs or fullbacks or whatever back you want to call this guy, wide back or, who knows what the label would be. But there are very few guys that are 6 feet 220 that run in the 4.3s. And there's very few guys that show that breakaway gear that Jonathan Taylor has. And Guerendo has that breakaway gear. And you can see it. If he can get to the second level, it's a track meet and he's gone. He's got that breakaway gear, and Jonathan Taylor has it as well. And they're both 220 pounds, and they both played at Wisconsin. So they're different in that Guerendo's much more raw as a running back than Taylor, who was much more experienced and refined as far as he had pick and slide moves, and Jonathan Taylor was a more complete all-around running back. Isaac Guerendo is a little bit more of a size speed freak, but the size speed freak part of it reminds me a lot of Jonathan Taylor, and that breakaway gear that they have to just get to hit pay dirt after getting to that second level. Guerendo reminds me in a lot of ways of Jonathan Taylor. I know there'll be a lot of people that would push back on that one. All right, let's get to Jacob Cowing, the wide receiver from Arizona, who ran 4.38. There's a couple different player comps that I could think of. One was Rondale Moore, but Rondale Moore ran 4.29. And there's a big difference between 4.29 and 4.38. So he's a super burner. I would say Jacob Cowing has a little bit of Tyreek Hill in him in that he's strong. He's got good strength, and you can see that strength on the field. But to me, he if I had to say what's the best comp, it's probably Calvin Austin of the Steelers right now. Calvin Austin went to Memphis. He was 5'8", 170. He was taken in the 4th round. Jacob Cowing, went to Arizona. He's 5'8", 170, and he ran 4.38, and he was taken in the 4th round. Austin ran 4.32. So I would say he's kind of like a Calvin Austin, but with a bigger catch radius, more dangerous from scrimmage. But built along the same lines. I think Cowing's going to be a better player from scrimmage than Calvin Austin, but he reminds me a lot of Calvin Austin. Small player with a big time gear and a big time explosive ability to get, either on special teams or from scrimmage. I think Cowing's a better receiver than Austin, and maybe even a better receiver than Rondale. But that would be the comp. Calvin Austin, 5'8", 170, 4th round picks, running the 4.3s, kind of small, return guys, can operate out of the slot. I just think Cowing has a little bit more strength and a little bit better ball skills, a little stronger hands, a little better route runner, a little bit more refined route runner than Calvin Austin was at the same point coming out of Memphis. But he reminds me a lot of Calvin Austin. All right, let's get to Tatum Bethune, the linebacker. I'm going to skip Jarrett Kingsley just because I don't know who Jarrett Kingsley reminds me of. I'd have to watch more to be able to make any kind of real solid evaluation of his play temperament or how he looks or He definitely looks like an NFL interior lineman. But as far as who he comps to, that's very difficult. But Tatum Bethune, okay, that's the Florida State linebacker. He's one of these guys that the stopwatch says 4.77, but the film says 4.5. And when you watch him, you're like, okay, he's 5'11 and a half. He's 227 pounds, roughly 230. And he's got a slow stopwatch speed, but he plays fast. Who does he remind me of? To me, he reminds me a little bit of Jamie Winborn, the former Niner linebacker who they took in the second round in the early 2000s out of Vanderbilt. And he played, 7 teams in the league. I think he played about roughly a decade. He was 5'11", 230. Bethune's 5'11", 227. Winborn was a second-round pick in that 01 draft, and he ran anywhere between, 4.53, 4.63. He was really fast for his day, considering now speed is even that much more at a premium. But he still ran really, really fast, and he was an undersized guy. The reason I see Winborn and Bethune is just Winborn was always around the ball, and he wasn't big enough, and he wasn't fast enough, but he just was good. And Bethune is kind of like that. He's not big enough. He's not fast enough. He's just good. He's just always around the football. So to me, I would comp him to Jamie Winborn. Winborn's a better athlete with a faster 40 who played faster, but Bethune might have better instincts overall. But under 6 feet linebackers who potentially play faster than they time. He reminds me a little bit of Jamie Winborn. And then let's go with 4 more comps on the 4 intriguing undrafted guys in my mind. One is Cody Schrader. And Cody Schrader is one of my favorite players in the draft. And it's like, I'm asking myself, why is this guy one of my favorite players in the draft? Well, because my other favorite player in the draft was Blake Corum. And they're basically the same freaking guy. Blake Corum went in the 3rd round, I think, to the Rams. He's 5'8", 205. Ran a 4.53 40 and a 1.58 10-yard split. Cody Schrader went undrafted, was the all-SEC first-team running back. He's also 5'8". He's 202 pounds, so he's 3 pounds lighter than Corum. He ran 4.61, so that's a tick slower than Corum's 4.53. But Schrader's 10-yard split was 1.55. And Corum's is 1.58, so he's even a little quicker at the line of scrimmage than Corum, which is a major, major thing for a running back. So, what do I see in Cody Schrader? I see kind of a poor man's Blake Corum, and I love Blake Corum, and they have a lot of the same traits in that they're leaders, they're tough, they're better than they play bigger than their size, they're good short yardage runners, they both hit the hole. They're both really leaders and guys that, model citizens in their program. Cody Schrader reminds me of Blake Corum, and that's why I kind of like Cody Schrader. All right, Mason Pline, the tight end from Furman. He's a 6'8" tight end with great hands who is a mechanical engineering major and played basketball. He reminds me of Mike Gesicki, the former Dolphin, the former Patriot, who was 6'6", real tall, high pointed the ball, a little bit more athletic than you think, a little faster than you think, just a little better than you think. Big guy who can go up for the ball and make plays, is more of a receiver than a blocker. He's not a strong inline blocker. He's more of a receiver, but a great red zone target who is a quarterback's best friend. So I see Mason Pline as kind of a Mike Gesicki. Evan Anderson, the Niners signed Evan Anderson. He's 6 feet, 320 pounds. Who else was roughly 6 feet, 320 pounds who played for the Niners and was strong against the run? DJ Jones. Now, Jones had a level of quickness that he was a good pass rusher as well as a good run defender. I don't know if Evan Anderson has that, but I haven't seen a 6 feet, 320 pound guy play with as much functional strength as what Evan Anderson shows on film since DJ Jones. So while he lacks the quickness of DJ Jones, I think overall was a little bit better athlete. Evan Anderson is as strong as an ox, one technique, two gapper, who can split a double team with the best of them. And in that regard, he reminds me of DJ Jones. And the Niners need him to play strong against the run so they can be good against the run like they were when they had DJ Jones. And then Tanner Mordecai. Let's finish with Tanner Mordecai, the quarterback who finished up at Wisconsin and played for SMU, started off at Oklahoma. 4.46 speed, pretty good arm strength. Watching him, he definitely doesn't have the kind of touch or accuracy of Brock Purdy, but he definitely has running ability with 4.46 speed and not a lot of fear. To me, he looks like a smaller version because he's not as big as this guy, but he reminds me a little bit of Taysom Hill in that he can be your backup quarterback. He can run. If he doesn't like what he sees, he takes off. He's got 4.46 speed, and you can see that speed on the field when he takes off to run. So I see a little bit of Taysom Hill there in Tanner Mordecai. Taysom Hill's bigger, and Taysom Hill's more a tackle breaker. Mordecai's not a tackle breaker, but Mordecai's a way better thrower of the football than Taysom Hill will ever be. And I think Mordecai's a better quarterback than Hill. But he's athletic in that vein like Taysom Hill, and he'll win the third string job just based on that athleticism. So there you go. The comps for the Niner rookies: Tanner Mordecai, Taysom Hill, Evan Anderson, DJ Jones, Mason Pline, Mike Gesicki, Cody Schrader, Blake Corum, Tatum Bethune, Jamie Winborn, Jacob Cowing, Calvin Austin, the wide receiver from the Steelers, Isaac Guerendo, Jonathan Taylor, Malik Mustapha, Rodney Harrison, and let's see, Dominick Puni, Zane Beatles, Renardo Green, Darius Williams, and Ricky Pearsall, Danny Amendola. Some you'll agree with, some you may not. I hope it was a thought-provoking video. Who do you think these Niner players compare to? Put your comments in the commentary, in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe to The Krueg Show. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krueg Show. And now let's thank our new sponsor, Aura, for sponsoring this video. And now a word from Aura. Have you ever typed your name on the internet and seen all of your private information is online? Are you tired of receiving tons of spam calls from random numbers? Are you receiving more and more of these as time has gone on? Well, that's where Aura, the sponsor of today's show, can really help you out. Data brokers sell your information to scammers and spammers and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, your email, your home address, all your records, your health records, who your relatives are. It's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use the information to help them access my social media accounts, my bank accounts, or any other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats I can't see. I get other features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more without having to download several different apps. It's really easy to set up, and best of all, I get everything at one affordable price. I value my privacy, and I value yours. You can go to the link in the description to start your 2-week free trial. Thanks to Aura for sponsoring this video, and thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krueg Show on YouTube.